Hello, hello. I'm so glad you're back. Today's video is about recovery. That's a big surprise if you're on this channel. We're going to talk about what it's like to recover from codependency. We'll also cover what that is. And alongside that, we'll talk some of the energetic aspects of what happens with codependent people and their energy field and how to mend those holes in the energy field. So to begin with, I wanted to start with a definition of codependency. Codependency could be summarized as chronic self-neglect. Now this doesn't necessarily mean that like physical needs are going unmet, but certainly emotional self-neglect is very, very common. So I've actually taken out a resource that is from the first time that I decided to, here it is, the very first time that I decided to go out and seek help for codependency, that chronic self-neglect. And what I just held up to you is the newcomer's handbook that they'll give you if you showed up to a CODA meeting. So CODA is one of the offshoots of Alcoholics Anonymous. Alcoholics Anonymous is a wonderful program that attracts people that want to recover from substance abuse. And then within that umbrella, there are different delineations. Some people are purists and want to stay in AA just for alcohol. Some people use it for other substances, but there are other offshoots if narcotics are your thing and you don't want to go to AA. That still exists. Beyond AA, Al-Anon, which is very similar to CODA, would be friends, family members, people that are affected by substance abuse and alcoholism as more of a bystander and not as the actual drinker or the person doing drugs. And CODA is a program specifically for people that qualify themselves as codependents, which, surprise, it's really common, especially I'm going to share a couple of the common traits. Do not be surprised and do not be upset if you fall into this category, because a lot of us, nearly all of us, unless you grew up with totally perfect, unconditionally loving caretakers, we're conditioned to seek to meet the needs of other people first, more so than asking for the things that we needed met, asking for our needs to be met. So, just to kind of give you an idea of what we're looking at when we look at codependency, if you were to show up to a meeting, you'd get this guidebook, and on one of these pages, or a few of these pages actually, it would list common characteristics, and since there are so many, I'm just going to give you an idea by reading one or two from each category. So typical characteristics of a codependent person would be they're not aware of how they feel. We often have a difficult time identifying how we feel. We have a difficult time expressing. Often we're more aware of how other people feel, sometimes even thinking that that is our own feeling. We're generally not aware of what our authentic desires are. It might be really difficult for us to identify what we actually want, and an even more difficult time asking for it if we are fortunate enough to actually know what we want. As such, codependents tend to focus their attention on pleasing another person, on protecting another person. Kind of sounds like the things that we need to do for ourselves, maybe. All right. In general, codependents have difficulty making decisions. We might be perfectionistic. We might have super, super high expectations of ourselves and others. And we tend to value other people's opinions more than our own, which would be externally focused, externally needing validation, externally seeking to be seen in a particular way, which is interesting because shame is also about being seen by other people. As for relationships, codependents typically have a difficulty in forming or maintaining close relationships with others, have to feel needed in order to have a relationship with another person. Interesting. We also tend to diminish our social circle as we become involved with, you know, a boyfriend, a girlfriend, whoever. We tend to fear another person's anger. We have fear of being hurt or rejected by this other person, which can really lead to, in my experience, a lot of dishonesty, a lot of self-dishonesty, and a lot of just not speaking up, even when I've been able to identify things that were like, you know, you can hear your internal voice going like, he's not gonna freak out, just, you know, just tell him it's fine, it's not a big deal. So those are really common traits. A lot of those rang true for me. A lot of times they still do ring true for me. So again, codependency arises as a result of being trained by parents and society and the church and the school and the teachers and all that to act a certain way, which is not generally authentic to what you need. Think about a kid in kindergarten. You know, kindergartners come in and they're like, I think they're 4 or 5. They're young, they're little kids, and they're being taught for the first time that, oh, here comes my doggo. They're being taught for the first time that you need to raise your hand. You can't just go to the bathroom. You can't just have a snack right now. You need to wait. You can't just have my attention right now. You need to allow me to finish teaching class. You can't just, and whatever the need that this child has, that child has to go temporarily without that need being met. They are no longer, their needs are no longer priority number 1 in that setting. And it leads us to have a quid pro quo relationship style. So this quid pro quo is often eye for an eye. It turns into love and affection and needs being met as more of a business transaction. It's transactional love of what can I give for you, with the expectation, spoken or unspoken, that you will give me a thing in return. And it has to be the thing that I want. Okay, interesting, isn't that? So how do I begin to recover? If we were to look at a little flow chart, we would see first that a need arises in our bodies. That would lend its way to a feeling, some kind of feeling, emotional, a sensation maybe in my belly, and then we would have to figure out how to go about meeting that need. So our pathway in, that we're going to focus on just for the sake of time in this video, is how do I feel? Okay, that's going to be our pathway into this. If we've become very disconnected from what the need is, that's going to be a hard place to start. We'll have to backtrack anyway. So this is our pathway. This would be our opportunity to close your eyes, tune in, you know, kind of going woo-woo, but like actually tune in and feel your body, feel for the sensations. Try to identify what that feeling is in your gut. Try to identify if you're familiar with emotions at all. When I started therapy when I was 18, I like would look at those emoji faces and like I couldn't label them. It was, you know, it's embarrassing and it's kind of funny and humorous to look back on, but like I had no idea. I had no emotional intelligence. I couldn't feel any of my own emotions. I only felt what other people felt. So if you can at least identify a sensation, you have a starting point, even if you don't have a lot of familiarity with emotions. So that would be your starting point. For codependence, we tend to have a very porous, like a sponge, imagine a sponge. We tend to have a very porous energy field. You could even think about it as like if we had a bubble around us, an energy field, or like some lineages will even consider the soul being around your body, and your body is just a smaller aspect of your human experience, this field becomes very porous. It allows us to, on a positive end, feel other people's emotions, but on the more negative scope of that, on the more negative side of the spectrum, it leads us to feeling dominated by other people's emotions. It leads us to feeling their emotions instead of our own, because we're letting so much stuff into us, because that boundary isn't enforced. It's not reinforced by anything. If you think about that porous, broken down energy field, you could think of it as like a craggy rock wall. A mountain climber would be able to climb it with his or her own hands. You could think about this being a place where hooks can get in. So if you in your mind have a concept of demons, a demon could get his hook, male or female, who knows? A demon could get their hook in there and like drag you around with it. On a less kind of malignant idea of this, these hooks can be this breakdown in the energy field could be how we attract relationships into our lives. We can think about this porous energy field leaving space for other people with equal and opposite breakdowns in their field to fit together with us like a puzzle piece. If I have this porous energy field, it has space for this other person with an equally broken energy field to come in and start to mesh with me and fill me, which is generally not a very pleasant experience. If you've been in one of these relationships, they're very, very painful. So that said, the first step in your codependency recovery is going to be, how do I feel? That's going to lead its way into what do I need, which is our actual starting point. And then beyond that is who or how, basically the pathway to having that need met. So how do I feel? What do I need? How do I meet that need, or who needs to help me meet that need? That's going to be the general flow of what we're discussing today. I am going to break this into a couple different videos, so if we're getting to a stopping point here, join me in the next one.